have special guest in the house, Dr. Josephine Gross, Editor-in-Chief of Networking Times. It is an absolute honor to have this iconic woman here in the house. Just so you know, she is the reigning Power 50, Direct Selling Live's annual Power 50, number 13. Coming in as the number 13th most powerful person in all of direct selling. Also, for our Women of Power list, she is number 3 on Direct Selling Live's most powerful woman in all of direct selling. Today we talk about the feminine side of leadership and the rising economic power of women. She's an absolutely fascinating interview, an absolutely lovely, beautiful woman, and we are so honored to have her. Also, she happens to be married to Chris Gross, also one of the co-founders of Networking Times. So sit back and relax as we interview Dr. Josephine Gross here on OnAIR. Okay, everyone, welcome back to On Air with Keeper. As I said, we have an absolutely marvelous guest with us today. We have Dr. Josephine Gross, co-founder of Gabriel Media Group. Gonna have to hold on, she's got quite a list of accomplishments here. Co-founder of Gabriel Media Group, editor-in-chief of Networking Times, something that all of you, every single one of you, I'm sure, are very much aware of, and Dean of Faculty for Networking Times. She is also the reigning power number 13 on Direct Selling Live's Power 50, and the third most powerful woman in all of direct selling worldwide. Josephine, welcome to On Air.
Thank you, Keeper. It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight.
You know, I have been wanting to talk to you for quite some time. When I got into direct selling in '95, I have really gravitated towards what was, you know, the genesis. We're going through Upline and then going through networking lifestyles, but now what's really cemented itself as the premier generic training tool for all of direct selling, Networking Times. You are an absolute icon in this industry, and everyone, I'm sure, watching this is very familiar with who you are. If you could, really quick, just give us an overview of your story, your background, and don't forget to leave out where you just came back from.
All right, I love telling my story because it's totally related, still related to what I do today. Well, I'm originally from Belgium, Keeper, and what brought me to the United States was I got a scholarship to go to Stanford, which was, of course, delightful. And I enjoyed that very much. I did my PhD in French, linguistics, and literature. And after I graduated, I left academia because I wanted to discover other things in the world. And I traveled, got different jobs, etc. And 10 years later, it was the mid-90s, I was back in California. I was between jobs, and a friend of mine sent me a package in mail, knowing that I was between jobs. And in that package, I found, lo and behold, some brochures from a network marketing company. Some about the product, some about the opportunity. So I started looking at it and I was laughing. And I thought to myself, you got to be kidding. I have a PhD from Stanford. I have all this experience. I hope you don't think I'm going to sell a product or something. But I started looking at it, and something that struck me was, as I was reading it, I was feeling very skeptical. And I told her, I said, Marianne, you don't think for a second that you can take this stuff seriously. This is just promotional material from a company touting its own horn about its product and its opportunity. And she said, yeah, I don't know, but I'm new, but it sounds kind of interesting. Why don't you come to my house for lunch and meet my upline? And I actually had seen in the brochure the profile of this so-called upline. It was a lady, she was actually also a Stanford alum, and she was married to an engineer. And as I read her little bio, I was kind of intrigued with her values, with the way she described her lifestyle, with her goals and what she was teaching people. And I thought to myself, why not? And so I went over to my friend's house for lunch, and totally not what I expected. These people didn't tell me anything about the company or the product. Instead, they were talking about personal development and what they were, how they were building their team, their values. And I recognized that there was something there that I could learn that in all my years of schooling I had never learned, which had to do with people skills and financial literacy and how to be a business person. And without knowing anything about the product and not even interested in the opportunity, I plunked down my credit card. I joined the downline because I just wanted to hang out with these people and learn what they had. Learn what they, how they built this incredible lifestyle that I had never seen with anyone in academics before. So as I told my upline my desire to learn about the business and these different things, she recommended a few books to me. You'll remember some of them. Remember John Kalanch, Being the Best You Can Be in MLM?
Oh, yes.
John Milton Fogg, the greatest networker. And back then it was also Wave 4 by Richard Poe. Remember that one? She said, there is one more thing that you need to do in order to learn about this business, and that is you need to subscribe to the Professional Journal for Network Marketers. And back then it was called the Upline Journal, and I was a good student, so I immediately called the 800 number. This was before e-commerce, so left the credit card on the voicemail and patiently waited. Now, included in my starter kit came a ticket to go to my first training. This was called the All-Star Training, and it happened to take place in Sacramento. And so 3 weeks later, I went with my downline. I already had signed up one person.
Your downline, huh?
And after the training, I walked around in the exhibitor area, and lo and behold, there was the upline booth. And since I hadn't received my first issue, I walked over there and to check on my subscription, and that's where I met Chris. And Chris saw my name tag, and my maiden name is Vandenbosch. I'm being from Belgium, and he looked at my name tag and said, "You must be either from Belgium or from Holland. You must be either Dutch or Flemish."
Oh, you must have been so impressed.
Because most Americans don't even know where Belgium is. Turns out that Chris's mom is also from Belgium, so he grew up with Dutch relatives. So that's how we started talking. And make a long story short, being the excellent recruiter that he was, he recruited me away from my business.
Well, I'm going to stay away from the number of jokes about him being your upline in other ways. So, but I digress. What a fascinating story.
We basically hit it off, and things went very fast. When I heard about what he was doing, he was running MLM Publishing Inc., which is a publishing company that made Upline and that also created the best prospecting tools and training tools for network marketing. So that sounded, me being a teacher and a researcher, that sounded really good to me. And so we started working together pretty much right away, me as an editor, and then I became circulation director for network marketing lifestyles. But see, the point of the story is really that what I do today in creating Networking Times, it's still in response to that very first need that I had for generic training, a third-party credibility tool that would show me that this business is legitimate, that normal people do it, and how I could learn, the business and how to succeed. So that's the beginner's mind with which I create Networking Times, because I think that's the most important and most vulnerable point where we are as networkers, is when we start, and we need to build that belief in the profession and in the business model.
Yeah. Josephine, we're going to get more into what Networking Times is all about in our second segment, but I do want to get into something a little bit here over the last couple of minutes of this segment. But before I do that, it sounds not only were you able to identify what Chris was talking about as being part of what you're all about, it also allowed you to bring in the academia of which you are so knowledgeable and have so much career skill sets into what you're already doing. As I'm listening to you talk about where you were and where you've come from and where you are at right now, and also with the understanding that you are on the Power 50 in the Women of Power, feminine side of leadership, how incredibly important is that, not only to the female distributor to understand what that's all about, but as the industry as a whole going forward? Why is it so critical that the feminine side of leadership come out?
Well, two things, Keeper. First of all, we live in a world that's pretty much still dominated by men. If you look at governments and corporations, the numbers, although all these positions are accessible to women, the reality is that women don't make it to the top of any profession. The numbers are there. Okay. Now, there's this paradox in network marketing. We have over 80% women in the field. Yet the boardrooms, the network marketing companies, it's still very much an old boys network. So we have work to do there. And,
I have talked about that very subject. In fact, we've done a study on it, how the boardrooms have upwards of 77% are male dominated and 23% have females, and yet the flip side of that and more is true in the field. How can that possibly be? And I completely agree with you. There is much work to be done on that side of the equation, bringing more women into the leadership side of the boardroom.
Right. And so when we ask ourselves why this is the case, why aren't more women stepping up to leadership positions? Well, there is a very complex answer. It has to do with conditioning, our history. Also, the fact that we are primarily bread bakers, as opposed to breadwinners. So it's a big step for women. So for women, it's network marketing is usually a part-time business because they have other priorities. So with Networking Times, what we really focus on is we want to encourage women and show them ways that they can become a confident businesswoman, so that they can develop confidence that they can earn a substantial income in network marketing. And also, we want to give them the financial literacy because historically women haven't been that interested in learning about finance.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're going to take a break for this first segment, but when we come back, I want to talk more about what you just said, and that is women being, or the population being conditioned where men are the breadwinners and women are the bread bakers. And how do we break that cycle when we come back? Welcome back to On Air. The fabulous guest, the beautiful Dr. Josephine Gross, who is the editor-in-chief at Networking Times. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, and it happens to be the right one. I'm sorry. It is, without a doubt, the best generic tool for training in all of direct selling. It turns out, after listening to her, that she and I pretty much got into direct selling right around the same time in the mid-1990s, so we have a lot in common. But as we were leaving, Josephine, you were talking about not only how Networking Times fits in to the lifestyle of the direct seller, but more to the point, how it fits into a woman's lifestyle and helping her to understand what leadership is all about. If you can, explain a little more about that.
So we were talking about the fact that women really don't make it to the top of any profession.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is that when we climb to the top, let's say in corporate environments or in governments, we have to fit ourselves into structures that were created by men for men, and they don't necessarily work for us. Yeah. Example, we have to behave pretty much like a man to succeed there. We have to go with bottom line results and accountability and analysis and structure. Now, these are all good traditional leadership qualities. But today's world really requires a different kind of leadership that also, next to accountability, incorporates empathy. And next to structure, also allows for flow. and next to bottom line results, also focuses on relationships. And this is something that women are really great at. But in traditional business environments, these qualities are not necessarily so welcome. However, network marketing is the place, it's conversation marketing, relationship marketing, where these feminine qualities not only are valued tremendously, but we can take our business much further when we balance the masculine and the feminine leadership qualities.
But I have a question about that, because what you're saying holds true in the field. There's absolutely no question about it. But how does that translate to the boardroom? So the qualities that you're talking about, the relationship qualities, the empathy qualities, are placed in the boardroom, so those particular things are also used by the decision makers. Because as you're saying, everything you just said plays out in the field. That's why over 80% of all distributors are women. But how do we flip that so it also takes place in the boardroom?
Well, that is a big question, and that we're still working on that. Hopefully the boardroom will realize that what works in the field works also in relationships at the top.
Yeah.
There is a book about that by Betsy Myers. We reviewed it in Networking Times. It's called Take the Lead. And she's in politics and academia. And she describes that even in those areas, what works today is a different kind of leadership, where you don't manage people, but where you engage people and bring out the best in them by creating a healthy emotional relationship.
Mm-hmm. You know,
so our board members at network marketing companies will start to recognize that and evolve.
You know, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct, and it kind of plays into the rise of the economic power of women. They are dominating the field. They generate more money. They generate more sales. And so there's such a rising economic power, not only in direct selling, but globally. Being able to translate that into the boardroom so that it's more fundamentally fair for women is something that is very, very important to me, and obviously very important to you and Networking Times. Talking about networking...
Also, smart business. We have to
absolutely
take into account the perspective of women and give them a full 50-50 voice with men, because, like you said, our world, ever since 2009, over 50% of the wealth in the world is in the hands of women.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the fact that women outlive men and will inherit their partner's wealth, but it also has to do with the fact that women are becoming more and more educated and are getting better and better jobs.
Could this be the perceived, and I say perceived, it's not my point of view, but could this be the perceived statement, the meek shall inherit the earth, coming to play out here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, and I would love to have you back on, because you and I, there's absolutely no doubt about it, can continue this conversation for quite some time. But I really want to talk about Networking Times a bit. Why is it that everyone should have this as part of their business building system, part of their business building toolkit? Tell us a bit about the faculty. You are the Dean of Faculty for Networking University. And so just give us some overview on all of that, because I think it's the absolute best.
Well, first of all, let me tell you about Networking Times. And to explain why people need it, I'll tell you a story, right?
Okay. All right.
Well, last year at Arjonax Mastermind, there was an engineer from the Ukraine that came to our booth and said, I have to tell you, Networking Times changed my life, and here's how. He said, I was approached for 2 years regularly by friends who would want me to join their network marketing company. And I was very skeptical. I thought they were all scams. And there are many scams in Ukraine and in Russia, because there is so much hunger for opportunity there, so it attracts a lot of scams. And he said, I never wanted to hear anything about it. But then one day I thought, well, maybe I should do a little research. So he Googled, he did a little research, and found Networking Times. And he signed up as an online subscriber, and he started reading the profiles. And after a couple of months of reading stories, his opinion of network marketing completely changed. He had total admiration for the people involved. He couldn't wait to learn the things that they teach. And basically, his whole perception of the profession changed. And long story short, he became involved in a great company and now is a full-time network marketer. And he says it's thanks to Networking Times. So network marketing is, we all know there is a stigma attached. There's historically, there's things that we haven't done right and that we have to set straight. We haven't always been the most professional group out there. So that's our mission. It's to help network marketers, to help raise the standards of professionalism in network marketing so that we can be recognized for the truly wonderful business model that we are. And that has to do with belief building, with training, with teaching, and that brings me to Network University. In 2003, we were one of the first people who started to do live webinars, live training webinars. We did 3 a week back then because it was the only game in town. And we gathered the best trainers in the profession in US and Canada and broadcasted worldwide. And immediately we had a group of, we had a lot of international people, some people in Europe or in the Middle East who set their alarms at 3 a.m. to catch the live webinar. So it was quite revolutionary. And so we're now in our, let's say, our 8th year or so, and we have 200 online, we call them our e-learning, so we have recorded webinars, so it's a huge resource for those of you who are students of the profession. It's an online learning institution where you can learn in your own time from the comfort of your own home. So we've been doing it for a while, and so yeah, that's what Networking University is all about, and it's one of the most exciting parts of my job is to bring all that expertise and knowledge to people around the world.
Mm-hmm. That's just outstanding. As you're talking about Networking University and Networking Times, I want to remind people that for the 2nd year in a row, Networking Times made Direct Selling Live's 25 must-have items for Direct Selling Success list. So it is an outstanding publication, and every single one of you should be getting this. Really quick, how do they get it?
How do they get it? Of course, you go to networkingtimes.com, you click on subscribe, and you can go with the paper subscription or the online subscription. Most people prefer to receive the booklet in the mail. And then up till last year, internationally, we had it available only online. But since the beginning of this year, we have a print subscription available. We'll mail the issue to any country. There is one price for all countries. It's $20 per issue. So we have our international auto-ship subscription where we will mail to any part of the world, so you can also get the print copy in the mail. So go to networkingtimes.com, click on subscribe, click on your region, and then you will see the different options.
Very good. Josephine, it's been absolutely wonderful having you here. I'm hopeful that you will come back again in the very near future and talk about a number of other things, but really continue to talk about the feminine side of leadership. Thanks again for being with us here on OnAIR.
Thank you so much, Keeper. It's a real honor to be with you and to speak to the people in your community. We are very aligned in our goals and mission to support women, not because women are better, but because our world has been dominated too long by men. And men have really suffered from that as much as women. So it's time for all of us to come into our feminine and masculine side. And for a while, we'll have to accentuate the feminine because it has been neglected. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Totally in alignment, mission-wise. Thanks again.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
When my mother used to sell Princess House.
Joined them way that night.
Norma siempre vendía cosas de Avon.
Oh, it must have been around 1935.
But those knives were amazing.
The one lady's name was Mary Kay, and I said, oh, cosmetics will never sell on Party Plan.
Was a single mom and created these hair care products for black women and became the first self-made millionaire in the United States. I just think that's extraordinary.
That is Dr. Josephine Gross, Editor-in-Chief at Networking Times and Dean of Faculty over at Networking Times, Networking University. An absolutely fascinating woman, absolutely lovely woman. And as I said, number 13 on Direct Selling Live's Power 50 and number 3 on the Women of Power list as well. before we close, I'm going to have a little quick commentary right here on the poll question that Direct Selling Live and MLM Black Woman just put out. It's about a conversation that I had with a Direct Selling Association head who said she has been told by a number of direct selling owners that blacks in direct selling are not considered viable prospects because they don't work hard enough. This poll has been absolutely explosive. People have been taking the poll, answering the question, and some of the comments have been absolutely amazing. Absolutely, what's the word? Absolutely, people have been absolutely open and vocal about what they had to say. With that in mind, I was contacted, I was contacted by a direct selling publication who was telling me in this communication that if I was talking about or asking if I was talking about DSA President Joe Mariano, understand this poll question made absolutely no statement about who it was that I had the conversation with. But this publication decided to ask me if I was talking about DSA President Joe Mariano, which initially I said, well, you know, there are many layers and many leaders in every association, and there are a number of associations out there, but there are many leaders and many layers. The fact that any leader, the head of any division, the head of any leadership in any leadership position at an association would say something like that, would allow a company owner to say something like that and not rebuke them is amazing to me. But more amazing to me is that this publication felt it needed to come to DSA President Joe Mariano's rescue to make sure that the people taking the poll and Direct Selling Live and MLM Black Women, those communities did not look unfavorably on DSA President Joe Mariano. The more I thought about it, the more upset I got because I was thinking, well, wait a minute. Joe Mariano, who I have a relationship with, is not great, but we have a relationship. We've had tremendous conversations about a number of things. If Joe Mariano wanted to talk to me, he will do what he has done in the past, which is pick up the phone and get to me right away. Why this publication felt it needed to come to his rescue is baffling to me. Until I began to think about it some more, and of course I got more incensed the more I thought about it. Maybe it's not only Joe Mariano that he's concerned about. Maybe it's the DSA as a whole, and maybe it's that publication as a whole. Maybe this publication and the DSA have not done their job as it relates to minority outreach in direct selling. If there's any thought, if there's any illusion that there's a problem and it might be about Joe Mariano, who, by the way, it was not, then there's a problem. If you think it's about you or if you think it's about someone you know, then there's a problem. Because why would you even arrive at that conclusion unless you know that there is potential for a problem? Look, we have plenty of issues to deal with here in direct selling. Race is certainly at the top of the list of all of those things. But if someone thinks they have a problem with something that I have said, Direct Selling Live has represented, MLM Black Woman, Direct Selling Live 360 Global, or the 100 Million Voices has said in the past, all you ever have to do is pick up the phone and call me. We don't need surrogates coming to the rescue for anyone. Gee, as the more I thought about it, the more political it sounded. So it was amazing that this would even happen. How could this happen? These are grown men. These guys can handle their business. These are grown women. These women can handle their business. They don't need anyone coming to their rescue. So please, if you are concerned that I'm talking about someone that you know, just point out what was being said and have that person call. But don't come riding to the rescue as if you are the person who's supposed to be doing that. No, you're probably thinking that you were giving me the heads up. No, you were not giving me the heads up. You weren't doing anything but stepping into something that did not require you being in the middle of. Amazing. It almost sounds like you're trying to silence a particular media here in direct selling. It wouldn't happen to be me or Direct Selling Live, would it? It certainly feels that way. Listen, I'm going to continue to talk about what I talk about. There are no sacred cows. Understand, I will champion the cause of women and I will champion the cause of minorities in direct selling until the day I die. And if you or anyone else doesn't like it, then maybe you are on the wrong side of history and maybe it's time you get with the program. Women and minorities are and have always been the power in direct selling. It's just that they haven't always known about it. And if it's up to me, they're going to know more about it each and every passing day. That's it for On Air with Keeper. Hope you have a great time. See you next week here on On Air.